Solving equations with rational numbers. Our first example, we have r divided by 3 7/10 equals 15. Now, this is a division problem. Remember, we always complete the inverse operation. The inverse operation in this case is multiplication. So, we have to take our denominator and multiply it on both sides. So, 3 7/10, 3 7/10. This cancels out. So now we have r equals 15 times 3 7/10. Now, remember, when multiplying decimals, we do not have to line our decimals up. So I have 7 times 5, which is 35. Carry my 3, bring down my 5. 7 times 1, which is 7, plus 3 is 10. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Now I add 5, 4 plus 1 is 5. Now remember, however many digits you have behind your decimal place, you also need that in your answers. So I have one decimal place and I have one digit. So that means I need 1 here. So r equals 55 5/10. Example 2, I have 7 5/10. X equals 16 5/10. Now, remember, this is basically me saying 7.5 times something equals 16.5. Now, the inverse operation of multiplication will be division. So I have to divide 7.5 on both sides. That leaves me with 1x. Now, remember, 1x is the same thing as me saying x. So, now, with division, remember, we have part divided by whole. Whole goes on the outside, part goes on the inside. So, we have 7.5 equals 16.5. Oh, I'm sorry. Scratch. We have 7.5 divided by 16.5. Now, remember, we cannot have a decimal on the outside, so we have to move it and make it a whole number. Whatever we do on the outside, we must do on the inside. So we move it over and we bring it up, correct? Now, this will equals 75 divided by 165. Now, I don't know 75 right offhand, so I am going to write my multiplication facts. 75 times 1 equals 75. 75 times 2 equals 150. 75 times 3 equals 225. Well, I noticed 225 cannot go into 165, so I go back down to the lowest one. 75 times 2 equals 150. 2 times 75 is 150, so I subtract. 5, 1. Now, remember in 6th grade, we no longer have remainders. So we have to add the decimal, which is there, and add a 0. I bring my 0 down. Now I have 75 into 150 again. And I get 0 once I subtract. So I am saying x equals 2 2/10. Now, I must check myself. Now, remember I said 7.5 times something equals 16.5. So, I have to go in and substitute 2.2. So, I have 7.5 times 2.2. Now, remember, you do not have to line the decimals up. But in this instance, they do line up. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 7 is 14. Plus 1, 15. 10, 14, 15. And then I add 0, 5, 6, and 1. Now I have 2 decimal places. I have 1 digit, 1 digit. When I add them together, I should get 2 digits. I am correct. Remember, it must be equal on both sides. Example 3. I have 1 and 75/100 equals 25/100x. Now, once again, this is a multiplication problem. So I have to divide 25/100 on both sides. This leaves me with x. Now, do not get confused just because the variable and your coefficient is on this side. You still do the same thing. So I have 0.25 divided by 1 and 75/100. Now remember, a decimal cannot go on the outside, so we move it over. 1, 2, 1, 2. Whatever you do on the outside, you do on the inside. So now I have 25 divided by 175. Now, 25 is an easy number to remember. Just think about quarters. I have 25 times 1 equals 25. 25 times 2 equals 50. 25 times 3 equals 75. 25 times 4 equals 100. 25 times 5 equals 125. 25 times 6 equals 150. And 25 times 7 equals 175. Oh, I can stop. I have 175. So that means 25 times 7 equals 125. Equals 175. So that means x equals 7. Now, once again, I have to go back and check myself. I have 0.25 times 7. 35, 14, 15, 16, 17. Now, remember your decimal places. I have 2 digits. So I need 2 digits down here. 1, 2. And this is correct. Now, if you get confused, just go back to your previous notes that we already went over. Thank you.